Looking at fermentation, and we are going to be introducing this topic. We understand we have been doing food microbiology, and we can't leave microbiology without talking about fermentation. Okay, yeah, and the learning objectives of this, we expect that by the end of the day, we'll be able to explain the basic principles and benefits of food fermentation, and also identify different types of fermented foods and their cultural origins. However, also demonstrating the skills and techniques to ferment various food products will also come in handy at the end of our engagement today. Also, we'll be able to look at and also evaluate the quality and safety of these fermented foods. Yes, I remember when we talked earlier on, we talked of microbes and how they would harm the body and etc. Things to do with food spoilage, the bacillus, the streptococci, the lactobacillus. We talked of Clostridium perfringens, Clostridium botulinum, and all other species. What stood out most was the Salmonella etc. But however, today we'll be looking at the way we can apply the knowledge of food fermentation to create new recipes, and also the safety of these fermented foods. We understand that they contain microbes, but how should we make these safe? However, we can also still understand that these microbes are things that when they get into our bodies, they will cause ill health. But still, there are guidelines that we would come in to help us and safeguard against the issues that would arise from these unsafe fermented foods. Okay, so friends, a brief introduction on fermentation. We say this is a natural process, okay, in which microorganisms turn sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So microorganisms used for making fermented foods are called starters, okay. Yes, we understand that when we talk of natural, this is something that takes place on its own. Okay, people sometimes term it as a metabolic process that occurs in cells, where they talk of the yeast, the fungi, and also some plant and animal cells. Okay, yeah. People have also come up with a lot of issues, as we will see later on, saying that also sometimes the fermentation occurs in the human digestive system. That to say. All right. So, what are the benefits of food fermentation? Okay. We are saying when you ferment these foods, first of all, we've said that fermentation is a natural process in which the microorganisms turn sugar. But here, I wouldn't advise us to use turn. We call it a breakdown. Okay, they break down sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This is the byproduct of the sugar, whichever sugar it is. And what we are saying are the benefits of food fermentation. I would like to explain this in a local term, but I feel most of us have encountered fermentation at a low level or at a higher level. Fermentation, sometimes people call it things going bad or things stalling or something like that. But however, we understand that fermentation is also key in our food production. Also, it is key to talk about when we are dealing with food microbiology. So one of the benefits of food fermentation, we look at development of flavors, aromas, and texture, okay? And we are saying it improves the flavor and aromas, e.g. coffee beans to coffee and also grapes to wine. When we look at wine, really this is something that everyone knows. I know people usually say the older the wine, I think the sweeter. We know that one. Whereby now, if we have a bottle of wine that was made or that was fermented in years BC, right now it would be trading at close to maybe 500 million US dollars or 1.2 million US dollars. Really, there is also a whiskey that is on display of recent that was going to be advertised at around $1.2 million. Well, whiskeys are different because those are distillates. But when we talk of grape wines are bought after fermentation of these grapes, and we say that the aroma, for people who have tasted wine and people who know how to check for wine, they can only get that aroma from the wine, and they can be able to tell you the amount of time this wine has taken. So issues to do with flavor and aroma come in handy due to the functions of the microbes that are in there. Okay. Yes. When we talk of fermentation, the element of alcohol comes in. I know some people sometimes don't want that alcohol smell or that alcohol flavor coming off a particular food, but whenever it comes off, people tend to get excited about this particular flavor. That's the development of flavors. Okay. So extension of shelf life of food from milk to yogurt and cheese. We realize that the milk can ably or can easily go bad in a duration of around 1 or 2 days. Okay, a maximum could be 2 days if you have preserved it well. However, when we turn this into products like yogurt or cheese, cheese can also actually cheese can stay longer. Okay, people eat cheese over full year. Okay, and more. But however, for yogurt, at least still the shelf life of yogurt is more compared to the shelf life of milk. So in order to preserve that particular food, for example, the milk, you could turn it into yogurt or the cheese, etc. And also we are looking at the improvement in the nutritional value of a product, such as improved digestibility, it gives from wheat to bread. We understand that partly what these microbes do in fermentation is partial breakdown. Okay, so when they act onto those substances, for example, the wheat substance, also the gluten in there, what happens is these are broken down into more digestible and more foods of nutritional value when consumed by a human. So those are the roles of fermentation. Okay. Also, synthesis of probiotic compounds, for example, from milk to yogurt. All right. Also, friends, let's engage ourselves in this slide: ingredients and their fermented products. Okay, what products do you get after fermenting these ingredients? So the different ingredients and their fermented foods they yield. For milk, like we had seen, we talked of cheese, we talked of yogurt, etc. The hard cheese, the soft cheese, etc. For meat, we've talked of sausages, or some call them salami, and the cheese ham, which I'm not so sure. I wouldn't want to give you wrong information on this, but yeah, we understand that sausages, for example, salami and cheese ham come from these fermented products. Like we had seen earlier on in what are the takeaways from this engagement, we expect you to be able to tell us some of these different fermented foods that are there in. Also, for grains, we have yeast bread, we have beer. We know that there is fermentation of barley that gives us this, and also malt. Then we have Chinese rice wine. I know if you have watched some of these Chinese movies, you have seen that these Chinese, since the biggest crop they grow, that side is rice, they can come out with rice wine from there, and also rice vinegar. However, I would like to interest you with saying one time a person made comments about that all carbohydrates, all starchy foods can be turned into wine or alcohol. That is why we get alcohol from sugarcane. We can get maybe alcohol from mangoes or wines. We could term them as wines, etc. But then it is the same, almost close to the same thing. The wines and alcohols are almost closer because the wine has a component of alcohol therein. People have come up with cassava wine or cassava alcohol. Do you call it cassava alcohol or cassava spirit? I'm not so sure. But these carbohydrates really have a way of being converted to alcohols under the safe methods of fermentation. And also, people are looking at distillations here. But today, the main topic of concern, we are looking at fermentation, basically. Okay, so ingredients and their fermented products. We have the sauerkraut, the oolong tea, the red tea, and the black tea. Okay, these can be achieved after fermentation. For legumes, we have the fermented bean curd, the bean paste, the miso, the soya sauce, etc. Well, and for legumes, we understand that fermentation takes place, but also there is growth, rot. Okay, that's what people call it, or they call it dying. So for these legumes, really people want to increase their looked at for fermentation, being improvement in digestibility and also improvement in the nutritional value of that product. Yeah. So for these fermented beans, we understand now that the enzymes and also the microbes have broken down most of the food stores, and now they are able to be digested and also to be absorbed into the body. So maybe someone could interest themselves and try to do that research and see how sweet the fermented beans would be. Okay, for fruits, we have looked at maybe all fruits could give you that wine, the pineapple wine, the name it, mango wine, maybe orange wine, the grape wine, etc. I'm not a good fan of wines, that to say. For fish and shellfish, we look at fermented fish, we look at fish sauce, and also the shrimp paste. Friends, I would advise you to get a few of these examples so that when required, you can ably describe what they are. For example, I will tell you to list the ingredients from the fermented products and also be able to describe what they are or the process in which they are formed. So you would be able to tell me how yogurt is formed. Maybe you could pick a bean paste and tell me how it is formed, fish sauce, and then I'll go and verify and you'll get maximum results or maximum marks from that. Okay, so what are the functions of bacteria in food production? Like we had looked at this earlier in fermented food production, sorry, we had looked at this earlier, and we had said that this is a natural process, first of all. But also, we said that it is a metabolic process that occurs in cells, particularly the microorganisms like the bacteria, the yeast, the fungi, and also as well as in some plants. So we are asking ourselves, what do these many microorganisms involved in this fermentation process benefit us? Okay, for example, in the production of beer, we have yeast that that is used in the fermentation of sugars to produce alcohol, as in beer and also in wine production. Okay, yeah. We have sauerkraut and yogurt. These are worked on by bacteria. So we are saying bacteria play a very crucial role in the various fermented foods. Okay, yeah. And the most important bacteria are the lactobacillus. We had looked at these earlier on if you had looked at food spoilage. And we are saying these decompose the lactose in milk products into the lactic acid. This lactose, if you look at the extension of OSE, it is the same for glucose, sucrose, maltose, etc. And we are saying this lactose is the sugar in milk. Okay. Yeah, so these lactobacillus help in decomposing these lactose sugars in milk and turn this into lactic acid. And we are saying this is used as starter cultures in the production of cultured dairy products, for example, the cheese, the yogurt, also in production of the fermented meat products such as the salami and the pepperoni, and also in the production of pickled vegetables such as the sauerkraut and kimchi. All right. So when we talk of the lactobacillus, you know what that since it comes from the name of lactic and also bacillus from the bacteria, we'll understand that it is required to decompose or break down, not separate the milk. We have what we call the whey and also trying to forget that coagulant, but then in the end, we have lactic acid. Okay. So what are functions of molds in this fermented food production? In most cases, when we are looking at food production, it's not that we are taking our mind away from what we term as food safety, because ideally you cannot eat a food that has molds on top of it. For example, people who have bread right now, you can leave that one piece out into the maybe just soak it a little bit in water, or maybe you can just even leave it out, then pick it from out there, then tie it in a polythene bag. At the end of the day, you will see that molds would have grown. So such foods are known to be consumed because they will cause ill health. However, we are saying that molds also create special flavors and textures in various foods. For example, the Aspergillus oryzae and also the Aspergillus soje in the production of I think sorry about this. I think this wasn't full, but we understand what Aspergillus is used in the production of that fermented food. I will tell that to you before the end of this engagement. However, we understand that still these molds also help us in penicillium. Okay, in the penicillium is required in the production of cheese. Okay, such as the Stilton, the Gorgonzola, and also the Danish Blue. Really, we understand that most of these will really help us in forming those. Also, we are saying that the the Aspergillus and also the soje, these we are saying these are filamentous fungi that are also used commonly in these food products, and we are saying these are very good and also attributed to people who know this art of fermentation, because this fermentation has been there quite a while and it's not a new practice, but it has been used almost everywhere in the likes of Japan and also the Chinese. So the formation, the making of soy sauce, these come in handy. Yes, I'm getting feedback. Does anyone want to supplement? All right, good then if no one wants to supplement. Okay, let's proceed. Yeasts and essential. So now we have looked at the bacteria, we have looked at the molds, and now we are going to be looking at the yeasts. Sometimes people tend to confuse the yeasts and the molds. So we need to have a differentiation of those. Maybe something would come around there new objectives. I don't know whether it will or not, but however, we need to have an understanding of what yeasts are and also what molds are. Okay, so we are saying that these yeasts are essential for production of fermented foods. Like we all know, most of the yeast products we are looking at are wheat products. For example, you could talk of the bread. Basically, here we talk of bread commonly. Whichever kind of bread. However much people only talk of wheat bread, but maybe people have started looking at maize bread, and also people are going to be interested in other different types of breads that can be achieved after using yeast. Okay. So we are saying through fermentation, yeasts are used to make breads, oats, and vinegar. And for example, these Saccharomyces and Cerevisiae is a crucial yeast type in food industry, used as a starter for fermented foods in the production of these fermented foods. We understand that from sugars, we add yeast, and the yeasts will give us the carbon dioxide and alcohol. Okay. Yeah. And also we talked of these being able to improve the structure and also the texture of that particular food in which they are added. Yes, so for fermented food, we look at cheese, and we are saying cheese is a cultured milk product rich in casein. Casein is the milk protein and also milk fat. Okay, yes, so when someone talks of casein, you should have your mind checked on in this being the milk protein. However, when we talked of the milk carbohydrate or the carbohydrate part of milk, we talked about lactose. I hope you get that one clearly. And also, maybe a skipped slide that I will also try to tell you to go and look for. We have formulas that happen, chemical formulas of what takes place, of the process that takes place when milk is turning into yogurt. So maybe you might interest yourselves and go and read a little bit further on those. Yeah, but that is it. And also the different types of cheese that are available, these can be differentiated by the following. So how would you differentiate the cheese? Uh, yes. All right. So for the different types of cheese that are available, we have these, and they can be differentiated or categorized using the flavors, using the texture, the type of milk, the salts, and the seasoning added, and also the type of bacteria or mold species that are used in ripening. Really, this doesn't have a lot of explanation that it would require. So, cheese making, we are saying the standard cheese process making involves several steps, okay? And we are saying, like earlier on, the cheese is made from milk of various animals, such as cows, sheep, goats, and buffaloes, okay? Yes, so this is where we acquire milk. However, the cheese I know or the cheese I've seen is only the cheese that is acquired from the cows. But maybe people can even have cheese that comes from camels. For example, people who are in the Arab world, maybe these could be used in cheese making. Also, the key ingredients in cheese making, like we said, is the milk, starter culture, rennet, and salt. And we are going to look at the steps that are involved in cheese making. So, what we are going to be looking at are the standard cheese processing steps or the standard cheese processing steps that you could use to come up with cheese. So we are saying milk is pasteurized and then cooled. I think we discussed what pasteurization is. Uh, Clara, would you want to tell us what pasteurization is?
Me, I don't know.
You don't know what pasteurization is. Do you want to give it a try? Well, it's fine, Clara. Don't worry about it. So, for pasteurization, we are saying here you're introducing heat that is used to kill or inactivate the harmful microorganisms, such as the bacteria, the yeast, and the molds. Okay, and also here we aim at preserving the quality and the flavor of these products. And I think good to note is that the pasteurization was introduced by a French scientist known as Louis Pasteur at the end of the day. And we are saying that starter culture is added to the milk after you pasteurizing and then cooling. Then a starter culture is added to the milk. And we are saying the lactic acid bacteria converts lactose to lactic acid. That would always come in handy. Never forget to say that the lactic acid comes from conversion of the lactose sugars that are found in milk to lactic acid. Okay. Then rennet is added to coagulate the milk protein, okay, which we talked of being casein into solid clads. And then these clads are cut into the smaller pieces to release the whey. Whey is the liquid part of the milk. Okay, so then this cheese is packed and then pressed to remove the remaining whey, and then salt is added for flavor and preservation. Are you seeing how small this process is? Okay, we are looking at also ripening a microbial process, then develops the final cheese color and texture and also flavor. We understand that cheese is color yellow if we have seen. Some people call it cream, but well, me, I prefer using the color that is closer to me, which could be color yellow. Like we had said, after pasteurizing the milk, then a starter culture is added to the milk. Then lactic acid bacteria that converts lactose into lactic acid. Then also rennet, we could call this lactobacillus. Let's not call it lactic acid bacteria. Let's call it the lactobacillus converts lactose into lactic acid. And also we are looking at rennet then being added to the milk to coagulate this casein. Uh, People call it caseinate in the end, but then let's call it casein into these solid clads. And these clads are cut into smaller pieces to release whey. Okay. And we've said that step 6, this is packed and the cheese is packed and pressed to remove the remaining whey, and also then salt is added to the flavor and preservation. Also, a ripening, there we see a microbial process and also developing the final cheese color and also texture and flavor. I think when someone tells you to detail the steps that are involved in cheese production, you will be able to give us something therein. All right, let's proceed. Okay, so what is the role of the bacteria in the cheese ripening? We looked at this being the final stage, and we are saying that bacteria play a crucial role in cheese ripening. Okay, and the different cheese use specific bacteria. For example, the lactobacillus in ripening of cheddar cheese and also ripening is temperature and humidity dependent and may last from weeks to years. Okay, like I told you that one of the benefits of fermentation is to increase the shelf life of these food products. For example, now the milk would not, there is no type of milk that takes close to a year. Maybe powdered milk, but I'm not so sure. When milk is in its natural form, cannot take a year. But once we turn this milk into cheese, after all this fermentation taking place, now we can preserve this from weeks to years. All right. So what are the two examples of cheese ripened by bacteria? One, we have the cheddar cheese, okay? And here we are looking at pasteurized cow's milk, the salt, the starter culture, and the microbial rennet. The rennet, we looked at this being able to convert the casein, okay? Yeah, to coagulate the protein in milk, which is the casein, and also help us in separating the casein from whey. Whey, we say this is the liquid that is left after the coagulation of milk into casein. Right. So, and also we have the vintage cheese ingredients. Here we are looking at the pasteurized milk, the salt, the cultures, and also rennet. Well, maybe, or maybe don't you, maybe asked to give two examples of the cheese ripened by bacteria. Hope you will be in position to reproduce this. Okay, so what is the role of molds in cheese ripening? Okay, the molds contribute to the ripening of certain cheese. For example, the Penicillium roquefort in the blue cheese, like Stilton, and also molds form a ring that acts as a barrier against unwanted bacteria. Examples of these we are looking at the Stilton ingredients and also the camembert and the brie ingredients. When you look at these names, most of them, they sound like French names because first of all, we understand that the French have a lot of love for cookery. Okay, that's why you see most of even their services, the table d'hôte. Most of these things are originate from the French. So it wouldn't be surprising for us to find that most of these are also the French names that we have right here. For example, the camembert and also the brie ingredients. And it is also not going to be surprising since Louis Pasteur is the French scientist who introduced the pasteurization method in trying to kill the microorganisms that are there or that are present in the milk. Right. So that is all with cheese making, friends. I understand that maybe if one or two questions come, you will be able to work on them and give them justice. For anything that has not gotten clear, I understand that whenever we come to have sessions like this, always after having an engagement with me, go back and look at these slides on your own. maybe if the videos are there, go and rewatch the videos, and this will help you. You know, most of our brains grasp things after uh, hearing them for a long period of time or after exposure. And I'm not saying that this is only to you people. When I was still in school, actually, I'm also still in school doing my master's. But when I was still in school, uh, in those levels, I would the only way I would get things is by going to revisit them. However much we understand that some people can get things at the first take, those people who we say these people are good at getting things from the blackboard, but really we understand that after getting exposed to information, this information will somehow rewire itself to you subconsciously, even if you're not paying attention. But when you're required to give it out, then you will be able to detail maybe the process in cheese making and etc. So, well, friends, I encourage you to always go and read, because at the end of the day, we want you to be prosperous. No one wants to fail you, okay? Not me, not Bosco, not Samuel. No one wants to fail you. We want you all to pass and progress. But then you have an image to sell out there that you're from Bristol Institute, and you know the principles of the certain things or the certain fields that you're involved in. Let's shift and look at yogurt making. That was, by the way. So, yogurt is a cultured milk product, and we are saying the starter culture for traditional yogurt consists of lactobacillus and also the streptococcus bacteria. We had looked at this. Okay. Uh, the key yogurt ingredients, we are looking at fresh milk, modified cornstarch, and also the lactobacillus bulgaricus and streptococcus thermophilus. We will understand what thermophilus means. Right, so this process still starts the same way as the process earlier on in the cheese making of pasteurization of milk. We are looking at pasteurization that you're going to be able that are there in milk, so that you can ably introduce the microorganisms of interest that will help you in fermentation, hence doing food product development and production at the end of the day. And also, we understand that when you have a presence of microorganisms that you cannot control, then it becomes hard. Okay, it becomes hard. A moment. It becomes hard for you to predict the outcome once you add those other microorganisms that are now of interest to that particular culture that you're making. Okay, so we are looking at homogenization, and we are saying that this is an important step in yogurt making that helps improve the texture. And here we are looking at breaking down fat molecules into smaller and more evenly distributed particles. Okay, yes. When we talk of homogenization in yogurt production, always be able to remember that here you're looking at breaking down of fat molecules into milk in the milk into smaller and more evenly distributed particles. This will result into a smoother texture and also maybe a creamier yogurt at the end of the day. Okay, so milk is then cooled at ideal temperature of close to 40 to 43 degrees centigrade for starter culture growth, and also the addition of the starter culture, which is always a mixture of lactobacillus and streptococcus bacteria. Okay, however, some people let this grow on their own. Okay, or some people use natural occurrences of this lactobacillus. The lactobacillus is found in milk that is going stale, so people can ably get that and add into the milk. But for industry production, this is what is required. So this lactobacillus converts the lactose into the lactic acid, and we looked at the coagulating of the milk proteins, and also here we look at acetaldehyde, a metabolic byproduct which gives yogurt its characteristic flavor. Okay, yes, and that is it with the yogurt making process. First, we talk of pasteurization and its importance in killing all the germs that are there in milk. Then homogenization, breaking down of these fats to have an even distribution of the fat molecules in the milk, and also look at that this milk is cooled at temperatures of 40 to 43 degrees centigrade, and also the addition of the lactobacillus and the streptococcus bacteria. And also, yeah, we have looked at this lactobacillus being able to convert the lactose into lactic acid, and also coagulating the milk proteins. All right. Finally, we have looked at the acetaldehyde, which is this metabolic byproduct which gives yogurt its flavor, and also uh, issues to do with the color or the flavor and the aroma, etc. All right. So we have looked at the yogurt, we have looked at the cheese. Now let's shift and look at the fermented vegetables. Okay, so the general steps for making the pickled vegetables, here we have the various styles, such as the Asian style, where we are looking at the kimchi. These are Chinese made. Okay, and also the Western style. This sauerkraut or the pickled cabbage is something that is always present if you go to those big restaurants, even restaurants that are medium, but if they have the knowledge of preparation, still they will look at this, the sauerkraut, which is the pickled cabbage, the pickled cucumbers, and the green olives. Yes, so here we would maybe, if you want to interest yourselves, you would go and look at uh, this in detail. However, most especially, I would want you to look basically at yogurt making, and also at cheese making. All right. So, friends, maybe that is all we would have wanted to look at when we are looking at these pickled vegetables, ideally. Okay. And this helps us in fermenting. Okay. The fermentation, or sorry, the pickling helps us in preserving these vegetables. And they are immersed in acidic solutions such as vinegar or brine, and this will extend the shelf life. Like we had seen earlier on, that these help us in extending the shelf life of these particular foods, the fermentation process, like I said. Issues to use with brine, the flavor, the heating, the brine, the packing in the jars, the storing, etc. Those are things that you will look at, because the process of pickling vegetables really is not that hard. You can understand it without a lot of explanation. Okay, so friends, let's look at fermented meat, and we are saying meat fermentation extends its shelf life and is of highly perishable food products. For example, sausage is a common fermented meat product, often made from finely chopped and ground meat blended with various ingredients, seasonings, and spices. I don't want to tell you that the sausages you see on the road are not fresh sausages always. Okay, yeah, some people can store sausages for close to 2 weeks, and they will always be bringing sausages, then fry them, then distribute, then fry, then distribute. Yes, so the fermentation helps us in preserving these meats. And also we are looking at curing salts. uh, these, we are saying this significantly affects the taste, the color, the safety and stability, and also the texture. Well, starter cultures, primary lactic acid bacteria, these are the ones are required in the fermentation of meat. Okay, friends, we had looked at vegetables, pickling of vegetables, we have looked at fermentation of meat, we have looked at the yogurt making process, we have looked at the cheese making process. Now, friends, let's interest ourselves in the fermentation of yeast bread. We are saying yeast is essential in bread making, like we had seen earlier on, and we are saying that yeast does this by producing the carbon dioxide gas bubbles and the ethanol in the presence of oxygen. Why is oxygen necessary in this yeast bread making? Okay, yeah. So the gas bubbles expand when heated, causing the duff to rise, or you call it the dough. Sometimes you call it duff, some people call it dough. So let's use dough because that's what is always common in the textbooks and also in the videos that we see. So fresh or dry yeast is used to make bread and other fermented dough products. Okay. So what is the role of the yeast in beer and also wine production? Beer and wine alcoholics made through fermentation reaction using yeast convert sugar into ethanol. Okay, you could go the other way of using distillation, but really we would get something better here when we use fermentation. And we are saying ethanol is an alcohol found in wine and beer. And also we are saying barley is a key grain used in beer production. When you look at most of those, barley is also a grain, okay, and it's also a carbohydrate. Yeah, I don't know which foods that are edible that could come from barley, but then really we could use barley in beer production. Once you look at the constituents or the ingredients used in making the different malts and also the different beers, you will see that barley is a key ingredient. All right, we are saying this barley contains enzymes that convert starch to simple sugars such as malt, which are necessary for fermentation. Okay, so malting and brewing processes prepare grains for fermentation, and then hops are added to provide flavors, aromas, and bitterness, and act as a preservative. So that is all with this beer production or wine making. We have looked at barley being the key grain that is used in beer production. But I'm not saying that we are only limiting ourselves to barley. We can also use other wheat or other grains that may be stable when we carry out this fermentation process. So the barley, we have said, contains the enzymes that convert the starch to simple sugars, which is malt, and then also this is necessary for fermentation. And we've said the brewing and malting process prepare these grains for fermentation, then hops are added for flavors and also the aromas and also the bitterness. And also we've said these act as a preservative to increase the shelf life. So what are the key points in wine production? We are saying wine is made from fermented fruit juice, the grains or the vegetables, and also we are saying the sugar in fruit juices and starch in grains and vegetables contribute to yeast fermentation. Okay, yes. So the yeast strain is used to determine the yeast strain used that determines the flavor in the wine. So wine typically refers to wine made from grapes. So whenever people talk of wine, don't look at banana wine for instance. Ideally, when people talk of wine, they are looking at grapes. And this is something that even when you look at, okay, this is one of the first miracles that people who believe in Jesus Christ will know. He turned water into wine. That is the first miracle that was recorded, yes, in the Bible. So, well, since those feasts could not end well without wine, it is the same until to date. So that is 2,000 years back, and wine was trending. Right now, still wine is trending. People have added everything to wine so that it changes in the aroma, it changes in the texture. But well, the concept of the development is close to being the same, right? Okay, so the varieties of wine, we are looking at white wines. These can be made from white, green, and red or black grapes. And also the red wine, these can be made from red and black grapes. Grapes are really something that could come in handy if you want to engage yourself into this agricultural production business. You could get a lot of money once you start farming grapes. Okay, so I think a lot of I'm a Christian, that's why you will hear me referring to the Bible when we talk of sour grapes, etc., grapevine that was abandoned by the farmer and all those. Okay, but we are saying that, like I talked to people, but don't take this as a gospel truth. I talk to people about the businesses to be engaged in. A business that has customers that are keeping available is a business that you would want to go on. Take an example. The richest people right now in the world are people who are into businesses of addiction. And don't get me wrong that I'm promoting addictions and etc. But once you look at us right now, most of us are addicted to social media. People are addicted to Facebook. Even before you know that you can even walk when you're still on your bed, you have to pick out your phone and look at what happened maybe on TikTok or YouTube, on Facebook, etc. So you see that the addiction aspect is getting people more money. And also on the negative side, you look at the people in Colombia, Bolivia, Mexico, Panama, and all those other countries in the, South America. Most of them are engaged in illegal businesses, but still, the concept of addiction still comes in handy. Well, for wines, I wouldn't say that addiction is really great, but still, there are people who can do without wine. So, if you have land and you want to cultivate these grapes, please feel free to get information about them and go and cultivate them. And also, we are looking at the sulfites. These are often added to red wines to maintain the color. Okay, because you can't claim to have a red wine that is blue, or you can't claim to have a red wine that is colorless or close to colorless. The darker the color, some people have said, the better the quality of that wine. Okay, so friends, lastly, let's look at other alcoholic beverages such as the Chinese wine, the whiskey, and also this seka. And seka are also made from grains. I told you that a whiskey bottle right now, there is a whiskey bottle. At the end of this presentation, please go on Google or go on whatever search engine you're using and type in that whiskey bottle that is going to be auctioned within this period of time. I'm not so sure about the dates, but it is going to be selling for close to 1.2 million euros. That is a lot of money for a fermented product. So also things to do like with vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, cassava, and sugarcane can also be used for alcohol beverages such as vodka. We know where vodka comes from. The parents of vodka are in Russia, and also the Korean shochu, the tequila. Tequila comes from Mexico and also those other South American countries, and also the rum coming from well, this is England, Scotland, and all the United Kingdom. Yes, so most of these alcoholic beverages could come through from fermentation. So, friends, I think we have looked at a lot. We have looked at the varieties of wine. We have looked at the wine production. We have looked at yogurt making. We have looked at pickling of vegetables. We have looked at cheese making. So, friends, at any time when you're asked to reproduce some of this content, please don't shy away. And we have looked at the benefits of fermentation. You could go at least with those where we have said it is used in development of flavors, also essential for the extending the shelf life of the different foods, and also it is a key for synthesis of the probiotic compounds, looking at the different ingredients, the lactobacillus, and how it helps us in breaking down the lactose to lactic acid. And also we looked at the casein, the rennet, which helps us in coagulating the casein, which is a protein that is found in milk. So friends, do not shy away when they ask things to do with fermentation. I beg to end this engagement here unless we have a question.